The origins of the Supermarine Spitfire trace back to the mid-1930s, when the British Air Ministry recognized that its Royal Air Force would need a new generation of high-performance fighters to remain competitive amid rapidly advancing aviation technology and growing geopolitical tension in Europe. The biplanes still forming the backbone of British air defense were becoming obsolete, and the emergence of fast all-metal monoplanes such as Germany's Bf-109 underscored the urgency of modernization. The responsibility for this new fighter fell to Supermarine Aviation Works, a company previously best known for its seaplanes and racing aircraft, particularly those that had dominated the Schneider Trophy competitions. The firm's chief designer, R.J. Mitchell, drew heavily from his experience designing high-speed seaplanes to create an aircraft that combined aerodynamic efficiency with cutting-edge construction. Mitchell envisioned a streamlined all-metal monoplane with an elliptical wing, a distinctive feature that would define the Spitfire's silhouette and contribute significantly to its performance. The wing design, developed with assistance from aerodynamicist Beverly Shenstone, reduced drag while providing ample internal space for retractable landing gear, fuel tanks, and machine guns. The fuselage employed a stressed skin construction, a modern technique that increased strength while minimizing weight. At the heart of the design was Rolls-Royce's Merlin engine, an inline, liquid-cooled power plant capable of delivering the high speeds and climb rates essential for interception duties. Despite its innovative features, the project faced several challenges. Supermarine had limited experience with large-scale fighter production, as its previous successes were mostly in low-volume racing aircraft. The Air Ministry's stringent requirements for speed, range, and armament also pushed the limits of contemporary engineering. Early prototypes had to reconcile performance with operational practicality, ensuring that the Spitfire could be produced, maintained, and flown by frontline squadrons without excessive complexity. Mitchell's team worked through these obstacles with a focus on simplicity in key systems, standardized parts for production, and careful balancing of performance traits. The elliptical wing, though more complex to manufacture than straight or tapered alternatives, was retained for its aerodynamic advantages and stability in high-speed flight. Provisions for 8 303 Browning machine guns were integrated into the wings, meeting the Air Ministry's armament specification and giving the Spitfire a formidable initial punch for its intended role as a defensive interceptor. By the time the prototype was nearing completion in 1936, tensions in Europe were escalating, and the Air Ministry viewed the Spitfire not as a luxury, but as a necessity for bolstering Britain's aerial defenses. The design promised to deliver the speed, agility, and firepower required to counter potential threats, while also serving as a platform that could evolve with future engine and weapon upgrades. As the prototype prepared for its first flights, the Spitfire represented not only a leap forward for British aviation, but also a critical investment in the nation's ability to withstand the aerial challenges that lay ahead. The Spitfire prototype, designated K5SO54, first took to the skies on March 5, 1936, at Eastleigh Aerodrome near Southampton. Piloted by Captain Joseph "Mutt" Summers, the aircraft immediately demonstrated the promise of R.J. Mitchell's design. Its streamlined fuselage, low-drag elliptical wings, and the power of the early Rolls-Royce Merlin C engine produced a level of performance unmatched by any British fighter of the time. Initial flights recorded top speeds exceeding 340 miles per hour, a remarkable figure for a prototype in the mid-1930s. Test pilots praised its light, responsive controls and excellent climb characteristics, though minor adjustments were required to address stability issues at certain speeds and to refine engine cooling and undercarriage operation. The testing phase highlighted areas for improvement but confirmed the aircraft's potential as a world-class interceptor. Engineers focused on refining the wing design to minimize aerodynamic buffeting at high speeds and ensuring the airframe could handle the stresses of combat maneuvers. Early trials also revealed the need to simplify maintenance procedures, as the Spitfire's intricate wing structure and flush-riveted skin, while advantageous for speed, demanded careful assembly and servicing. Modifications were introduced to improve access panels, oil cooling, and structural reinforcement around the landing gear mounts, all without compromising performance. The Air Ministry closely monitored the trials, aware that Germany's burgeoning Luftwaffe was fielding the Messerschmitt Bf 109, a formidable monoplane fighter already entering service. The Spitfire's successful test results convinced officials to bypass further prototype stages and approve production almost immediately, even before all flight testing was complete. An initial order for 310 aircraft was placed in June 1936, reflecting the urgency to field a modern fighter capable of defending British airspace. During this transition from prototype to production, Rolls-Royce refined the Merlin engine for operational reliability, and Supermarine expanded its manufacturing capabilities, which had been primarily geared toward low-volume seaplanes. This scaling-up process presented logistical hurdles, as the Spitfire's advanced construction required precision manufacturing techniques and skilled labor unfamiliar to many subcontractors. To address this, new production lines were established with the assistance of Vickers, Supermarine's parent company, and extensive training programs were launched to ensure assembly met the required tolerances. By late 1937 and early 1938, the first production Spitfire Mky aircraft began rolling off the lines. These models featured the Merlin II engine, standardized armament of 8 303 Browning machine guns, and minor aerodynamic refinements based on prototype feedback. They achieved top speeds of over 360 miles per hour and could climb to combat altitudes more quickly than most contemporary fighters. Early service evaluations confirmed the Spitfire's reputation as a fast, agile, and robust platform, ideally suited to Britain's defensive needs. The completion of testing and the commencement of deliveries marked the point at which the Spitfire moved from a promising prototype to the core of Britain's fighter strategy. With tensions in Europe continuing to escalate and the Luftwaffe expanding rapidly, the aircraft entered squadron service just as it became clear that a major aerial confrontation was looming. Its operational debut would soon prove whether Mitchell's design could translate its promising trials into battlefield effectiveness. The Spitfire entered operational service with No. 19 Squadron at Duxford in August 1938, as the first frontline RAF unit to transition to the new fighter. Initial squadron integration highlighted both the aircraft's advantages and the adjustments required for pilots and ground crews accustomed to simpler, slower biplanes like the Gloucester Gladiator. Pilots praised the Spitfire's rapid acceleration, precise control response, and exceptional speed, which allowed them to climb faster and engage targets with a flexibility unmatched by older designs. However, they also noted that the aircraft demanded greater precision during takeoff and landing, as its narrow landing gear track could make ground handling difficult, particularly in adverse weather conditions. As more squadrons received the Spitfire Mky, through late 1938 and 1939, the RAF developed tactics that capitalized on the aircraft's strengths. Training emphasized energy fighting, using its speed and climb rate to dictate engagements, while avoiding prolonged turning battles, which, although the Spitfire was highly maneuverable, could sap its energy and leave it vulnerable. Ground crews adapted to the Spitfire's more complex systems, learning to maintain the Merlin engine and service the flush-riveted airframe, which demanded more precision than the RAF's older aircraft, but rewarded careful handling with sustained performance. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939 and Britain declared war, the Spitfire was one of two modern monoplane fighters in RAF service, alongside the Hawker Hurricane. During the early months of the war, known as the Phony War, Spitfire squadrons conducted limited patrols and interceptions over the North Sea, but saw little direct combat. This period allowed the RAF to refine operational readiness, improve communication equipment, and work out logistical challenges associated with maintaining the new fighter in dispersed airfields. The Spitfire's first significant combat experiences came during the Battle of France in the spring of 1940, though in limited numbers. Most RAF fighter units deployed to France flew Hurricanes, while Spitfires were retained in Britain to guard against potential Luftwaffe incursions. This decision preserved the RAF's most advanced fighter for the defense of the British Isles, a choice that would prove crucial in the months ahead. By the summer of 1940, as the Luftwaffe prepared to launch its campaign to gain air superiority over Britain, the Spitfire had become central to the RAF's fighter command. While Hurricanes bore the brunt of engagements against German bombers, Spitfires were tasked primarily with countering the Bf-109 escorts, leveraging their speed and maneuverability to challenge Germany's top fighter pilots. Pilots quickly recognized the Spitfire's ability to match or exceed the performance of the Bf-109E in climbs and turns. Though its shorter range and limited endurance compared to its German counterpart required precise coordination and rapid engagement tactics. Reactions from both British and German pilots underscored the Spitfire's growing reputation. RAF aviators valued its responsiveness and ability to absorb punishment, while captured German reports acknowledged it as a formidable opponent, particularly in turning combat. As the aerial battles intensified, the Spitfire began to cement its status as the backbone of Britain's air defense, not by sheer numbers — Hurricanes still outnumbered it — but by ensuring that the RAF could contest the Luftwaffe's most dangerous fighters on equal or superior terms. Its early operational role laid the groundwork for the aircraft's legend, proving it could deliver the performance Britain needed as it faced its greatest aerial challenge. The Spitfire's defining combat role emerged during the Battle of Britain, from July to October 1940, when it became the centerpiece of the RAF's defense against the Luftwaffe's attempt to gain air superiority over southern England. While Hurricanes engaged the bulk of German bombers, Spitfire squadrons were primarily tasked with intercepting Bf-109 escorts, ensuring that Britain's defensive fighters could protect vital targets without being overwhelmed by enemy fighters. This division of labor allowed the Spitfire to exploit its superior agility and climb performance against the Luftwaffe's frontline aircraft, while minimizing the risk to its slightly more numerous Hurricane counterparts. Throughout the campaign, the Spitfire demonstrated its ability to match or exceed the performance of the Bf-109E in most critical flight regimes. It could outturn the German fighter at most speeds, and while the 109 retained a slight advantage in climb rate and dive acceleration, RAF pilots developed tactics to maximize their aircraft's strengths. The Spitfire's tight turning circle, combined with the use of flexible formations like the Finger 4, adopted from German tactics, enabled RAF pilots to counter numerically superior Luftwaffe attacks despite operating from a defensive posture. Its 8 303 Browning machine guns, though lacking the punch of heavier cannons, could deliver devastating bursts when concentrated, particularly against lightly armored enemy fighters. The aircraft also proved resilient under fire, its robust structure and reliable Merlin engine allowing many damaged aircraft to return to base. Nevertheless, the Spitfire's limitations became apparent during the campaign. Its short range restricted its time over the Channel and forced RAF squadrons to operate in tight coordination to avoid fuel exhaustion during prolonged engagements. German pilots exploited this by attempting to draw the British fighters into extended fights, though the RAF's disciplined control system, using radar-guided ground controllers, helped mitigate this disadvantage. Despite these challenges, the Spitfire, alongside the Hurricane, ensured that the Luftwaffe failed to achieve air superiority, forcing Germany to postpone and ultimately abandon plans for an invasion of Britain. The aircraft's performance during the battle cemented its reputation not only as Britain's premier fighter, but as a symbol of the RAF's ability to resist the Luftwaffe at a time when the balance of power seemed overwhelmingly in Germany's favor. Following the Battle of Britain, the Spitfire continued to adapt to new combat requirements. As the Luftwaffe introduced upgraded Bf-109F models and the FW-190A, the Spitfire underwent a steady program of enhancements, including improved engines, strengthened airframes, and revised armament. These upgrades allowed the aircraft to retain competitiveness across various theaters, from North Africa to the defense of Malta, as the RAF shifted from a defensive strategy to more offensive operations. The experience gained during the Battle of Britain shaped the tactics and technical refinements that kept the Spitfire viable throughout the remainder of the war, as it transitioned from a home defense interceptor into a versatile fighter capable of meeting the Luftwaffe on equal terms wherever the conflict spread. The evolution of the Spitfire during 1941-1943 was marked by a rapid succession of variants designed to meet the escalating challenges of the air war and to counter the emergence of improved German fighters like the Bf-109F and the FW-190A. The introduction of the Mk-V, powered by the Merlin 45 engine, became the most widely produced Spitfire variant of the war and the RAF's primary fighter through much of this period. The Mk-V series offered improved speed and climb performance and introduced options for different wing armament configurations, including versions with a mix of 20mm Hispano cannons and .303 Browning machine guns to increase firepower against both fighters and bombers. Despite its success, the Mk-5 quickly faced a significant challenge when the FW-190 entered service in 1941. The German fighter's superior speed, roll rate, and acceleration outclassed the Spitfire Mk-5, prompting urgent development of upgraded models. Interim solutions included clipped wings to improve roll rates and boost low-altitude performance, as well as enhanced Merlin engines to narrow the performance gap. These measures bought time while Supermarine worked on the Mk9, which would become the definitive counter to the FW-190. The Spitfire Mach 9, introduced in mid-1942, featured the powerful Merlin 61 two-stage supercharged engine, dramatically improving high-altitude speed and climb rate. With this engine and strengthened airframe, the Mk9 restored the Spitfire's edge, capable of matching or exceeding the performance of the FW-190A at most altitudes. The Mk9 quickly became a cornerstone of RAF operations, not only defending Britain, but also escorting bombers and engaging in offensive sweeps over occupied Europe as the RAF shifted to a more aggressive posture. During this period, the Spitfire also diversified into specialized roles. Photo reconnaissance versions, stripped of armament and fitted with extra fuel tanks and cameras, operated at high altitudes over enemy territory, providing vital intelligence for Allied operations. Some Spitfires were adapted for carrier operations as the Seafire, fitted with arrestor hooks and reinforced landing gear for use aboard Royal Navy carriers. Though the Seafire's narrow landing gear made deck operations challenging, it allowed the Spitfire design to serve in naval theaters, including the Mediterranean. The refinement of the Spitfire's airframe and systems during these years ensured its continued relevance as the air war evolved. Upgraded radios, gyro gun sights, and improved oxygen systems enhanced its effectiveness during long-range missions and high-altitude engagements. The aircraft's versatility and constant adaptation allowed it to remain the RAF's primary frontline fighter, even as newer designs like the Hawker Typhoon and later Tempest began to supplement it for ground attack and low-level strike roles. By 1943, the Spitfire had transitioned from a defensive icon of the Battle of Britain to a multi-role fighter supporting an increasingly offensive Allied air strategy. Its numerous variants, each tailored to specific operational needs, demonstrated the resilience and flexibility of R.J. Mitchell's original design, ensuring it could keep pace with the rapidly advancing demands of aerial warfare. These developments paved the way for the Spitfire to remain at the forefront of RAF operations into the final years of the conflict, adapting once more to face the Luftwaffe's late-war threats. By 1944 and 1945, the Spitfire had evolved into a family of advanced variants capable of fulfilling multiple roles across diverse theaters, ensuring its continued prominence even as newer Allied fighters emerged. The introduction of the Mk6 powered by the Rolls-Royce Griffon engine, marked one of the most significant leaps in performance. With over 2,000 horsepower and a 5-bladed propeller, the Griffon-powered Spitfire could reach speeds exceeding 440 miles per hour and climb at rates comparable to or better than most late-war fighters, including the formidable FW-190D and Bf-109K. These enhancements allowed the Spitfire to reclaim superiority in high-altitude combat and to perform effectively as an interceptor against German V-1 flying bombs, where speed and rapid climb were crucial. Alongside the Mk14, other late-war variants, such as the Mk8 and Mk15, served in Europe and the Pacific, each optimized for different missions. The Mkc8, a refined Merlin-powered model with extended range and tropical filters, became a mainstay in the Mediterranean and Southeast Asia, providing air superiority and escort for long-distance operations. The Mk16, essentially a Merlin-powered counterpart to the Mk16, was widely used in the European theater for low-level ground attack and escort missions, benefiting from its versatility and ease of production. Technological refinements during this period extended beyond engines. Spitfires received bubble canopies for improved visibility, strengthened landing gear to handle heavier payloads, and advanced gyro gun sights to increase accuracy during deflection shooting. Armament configurations became increasingly varied, with combinations of 20mm cannons and 50-caliber machine guns tailored to missions, ranging from bomber escort to strafing ground targets. Many aircraft carried bomb racks or rockets, expanding the Spitfire's effectiveness as a fighter bomber during the Allied offensives following D-Day. Operationally, Spitfires played vital roles during key campaigns of the war's final phase. They escorted heavy bombers deep into occupied Europe, supported ground forces during the Normandy landings, and engaged in relentless air superiority battles over France and Germany. In the Pacific and Southeast Asia, their long-range versions provided essential cover for Allied advances, countering Japanese aircraft in challenging tropical environments. Despite competition from high-performance fighters like the North American P-51 Mustang and the Hawker Tempest, the Spitfire remained integral to RAF and Commonwealth operations thanks to its balance of maneuverability, adaptability, and continuously upgraded performance. By the war's end, the Spitfire had transcended its origins as a short-range interceptor to become a multi-role platform capable of meeting nearly any operational demand. Its evolution into Griffon-powered high-speed interceptors, long-range escorts, and ground attack variants underscored the flexibility of its original design. These final wartime models ensured the Spitfire not only survived, but thrived as one of the RAF's most effective tools, maintaining relevance even as the first generation of jet aircraft began to emerge on the world's airfields. After the Second World War, the Spitfire transitioned from its role as Britain's premier wartime fighter to a key component in the rebuilding of air forces across Europe and beyond, while also finding a lasting place in aviation heritage. Although rapidly eclipsed by jet-powered aircraft like the Gloucester Meteor and de Havilland Vampire, the Spitfire's proven airframe and versatility ensured its continued service into the early 1950s. Many late-war variants, particularly the Mk15 and Mk14, remained operational with the RAF for secondary roles such as reconnaissance, training, and territorial defense, while others were transferred to reserve and auxiliary squadrons as jets became the frontline standard. The Spitfire saw extensive post-war service with foreign air forces, reflecting both its availability and enduring capabilities. Countries including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India operated surplus aircraft as they transitioned to independent defense forces. In Europe, nations such as the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, and Norway integrated the Spitfire into their post-war fleets, using it for air policing and as a stopgap fighter until new designs could be procured. Some of these aircraft participated in post-war conflicts and regional operations, including early tensions in the Middle East and colonial policing missions, where their reliability and adaptable armament remained useful despite their advancing age. Beyond direct combat use, the Spitfire became a platform for experimentation and secondary duties. Modified aircraft were employed for high-speed research, weapons testing, and even as chase planes for early jet trials, leveraging their predictable handling and robust structure. Specialized reconnaissance versions continued to serve into the early 1950s, benefiting from the Spitfire's ability to operate at high altitudes and long ranges with minimal detection, making them valuable during the early stages of Cold War intelligence gathering. Culturally, the Spitfire emerged as a symbol of British resilience and technological achievement. Numerous airframes were preserved in museums across the United Kingdom and Commonwealth nations, while others were restored to flying condition, ensuring the aircraft remained a living part of aviation history. Airworthy examples became staples at air shows, where their distinctive elliptical wings and the unmistakable growl of their Merlin or Griffin engines captivated audiences and maintained a tangible connection to the era in which they played such a pivotal role. Even as the last operational Spitfires were retired from military service, their influence persisted in doctrine and design philosophy. The lessons learned from their adaptability, aerodynamic refinement, and continuous upgrade potential informed subsequent British aircraft development during the early jet age. Today, the Spitfire endures not only as an artifact of the Battle of Britain, but as a symbol of innovation, flexibility, and determination, representing one of the most iconic and influential aircraft in the history of military aviation. The Spitfire's legacy is defined by its dual role as both a decisive weapon of the Second World War and an enduring icon of aviation history. Over its production life, more than 20,000 units were built across 24 major variants, making it one of the most adaptable and widely used fighters of the conflict. Its ability to evolve, from the early Merlin-powered Mk1 interceptors to late-war Griffin-powered Mk4 and beyond, allowed it to remain operationally relevant for nearly a decade, despite the rapid advancements in aircraft technology. This flexibility ensured that the Spitfire could fulfill a wide spectrum of missions, from home defense and bomber escort to photo reconnaissance and naval operations as the Seafire. In terms of technological influence, the Spitfire set a standard for aerodynamic refinement and performance among piston-engine fighters. Its elliptical wing, though complex to manufacture, provided excellent lift and minimal drag, influencing wing designs on later British and international aircraft. Its adaptability to progressively more powerful engines, heavier armament, and specialized equipment reflected a design philosophy that prioritized growth potential without sacrificing core performance. The aircraft's operational history demonstrated that with consistent engineering innovation, even a pre-war design could remain competitive well into the late 1940s. Culturally and symbolically, the Spitfire became inseparable from the image of the Battle of Britain, representing not just a fighter aircraft, but Britain's resilience during its most perilous period. For the RAF and Commonwealth airmen who flew it, it was a trusted and responsive machine, capable of meeting or exceeding most Axis fighters throughout the war when flown to its strengths. For the public, its distinctive shape and sound became enduring hallmarks of British defiance and technical prowess. Post-war, the Spitfire's legacy extended through its presence in air forces worldwide, its continued use in research and training roles, and its survival as one of the most celebrated warbirds in aviation history. Restored examples remain a fixture at air shows, museums, and commemorations, serving as tangible reminders of the aircraft's role in shaping the outcome of the war and advancing aviation technology. Its prominence in films, documentaries, and literature further entrenched its status as perhaps the most recognizable Allied fighter of the Second World War. Ultimately, the Spitfire stands as more than a product of its time. It represents a convergence of innovative engineering, industrial commitment, and operational necessity that enabled it to meet the shifting demands of total war. Its adaptability, combat record, and enduring cultural presence ensure that it remains one of the most iconic and influential aircraft of the 20th century. A fighter whose silhouette and history continue to symbolize a pivotal chapter in both Britain's wartime struggle and the evolution of military aviation. The Spitfire's post-war life extended far beyond its original role, with its airframe continuing to serve in multiple capacities and leaving a long-lasting influence on global aviation. In the years following 1945, as jet aircraft rapidly became the centerpiece of modern air forces, the Spitfire found new roles in training, reserve service, and export programs. Many Commonwealth and European nations integrated surplus Spitfires into their air arms to rebuild or expand their capabilities during the transitional years. Countries such as Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway relied on Spitfires to restore their post-war defensive forces, while others, including Greece, Turkey, Egypt, and Israel, used them actively in regional conflicts throughout the late 1940s. In the Middle East, Spitfires played a direct role in combat during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Both Israeli and Egyptian forces fielded the type, with several dogfights occurring between aircraft of identical design but flown by opposing sides. Though by then technologically outdated compared to early jets, the Spitfire's maneuverability and reliability ensured it remained a valuable tool for nations with limited resources. These deployments demonstrated the aircraft's enduring combat value, even as jet fighters like the Meteor and Vampire began to define modern air combat. Outside active combat, many Spitfires were converted for specialized roles. Photo reconnaissance versions continued operating into the early 1950s, valued for their ability to reach high altitudes and gather intelligence in the early years of the Cold War. Others were adapted as target tugs, weather research platforms, and chase planes for early jet testing, capitalizing on their stability, predictable handling, and robust performance. These functions allowed the aircraft to remain relevant even as its frontline fighter role diminished. The Spitfire's cultural presence expanded during this period as well. Numerous aircraft were preserved by museums, while others were sold to private owners, laying the foundation for the warbird restoration movement. Its distinctive design made it a popular choice for appearances in films and documentaries, reinforcing its iconic status and ensuring that it remained deeply embedded in public memory. Spanish-built Hispano Aviación HA-11-12s, although based on the Bf-109 airframe, often stood in for Spitfires and other fighters in cinematic productions, further solidifying the aircraft's enduring visibility. By the time the last military Spitfires were retired in the mid-1950s, the aircraft had served across 5 continents and in dozens of air forces, its lifespan stretching well beyond that of most piston-engine fighters of its generation. Its adaptability in combat, reconnaissance, and auxiliary roles, combined with its prominent place in post-war aviation culture, ensured that the Spitfire remained more than just a relic of the Battle of Britain. It became a symbol of continuity during a period of rapid technological change, bridging the gap between the piston and jet eras while leaving a legacy that would influence aviation enthusiasts, historians, and engineers for decades to come. The enduring legacy of the Supermarine Spitfire rests on its dual role as a cornerstone of Allied air power during the Second World War and a symbol of aviation innovation that transcended its era. Across its production run, the aircraft not only defended Britain during its most critical hours, but also adapted into a multi-role platform capable of operating in nearly every theater of the war. Its evolution from the early Merlin-powered Mk1 interceptors to the Griffin-driven Mk14 and long-range reconnaissance versions reflected a design philosophy centered on growth, versatility, and continuous refinement. This ability to integrate more powerful engines, heavier armament, and mission-specific modifications ensured that the Spitfire could meet shifting operational demands for nearly a decade, even as jet technology began to dominate. Technologically, the Spitfire exemplified the balance between aerodynamic innovation and practical combat utility. Its elliptical wing, while challenging to manufacture, became a benchmark for efficient lift and low drag in piston engine fighters, influencing wing designs for later aircraft. Its compatibility with progressive engine upgrades demonstrated how a pre-war design could remain competitive through sustained engineering innovation, setting a precedent for adaptable airframes in military aviation. The lessons learned from its structural flexibility and operational performance shaped British aircraft development during the early jet age, informing the transition from piston to jet-powered fighters. Culturally and historically, the Spitfire became inseparable from the image of Britain's wartime resilience. While the Hawker Hurricane shouldered a larger share of bomber interceptions during the Battle of Britain, the Spitfire's confrontations with the Luftwaffe's Bf-109s established it as the premier symbol of RAF fighter strength. Its distinctive silhouette, the sound of its Merlin and Griffin engines, and its association with pivotal victories ensured it remained etched in public memory as the aircraft most closely tied to Britain's survival and eventual triumph. In the decades after its retirement from military service, the Spitfire's prominence only grew. Surviving examples became centerpieces of aviation museums, commemorative events, and private collections, with many restored to flight to showcase their capabilities to new generations. At air shows and historical reenactments, the Spitfire's graceful lines and distinctive engine note continue to evoke the technological and cultural spirit of the era it defined. Ultimately, the Spitfire stands as more than a relic of a past conflict. It represents the intersection of necessity, ingenuity, and adaptability in military aviation. It is remembered not only as the legend of the Battle of Britain, but as one of the most influential and enduring fighters of the 20th century, a machine that bridged the gap between pre-war design and late-war innovation, left a lasting imprint on aerial combat tactics, and became an enduring icon of technological achievement and national resolve.